about a half hour there that I don't recall what went on. I don't even remember having it in my possession coming down the ladder. The antenna hit 12,500 volts. I lost my right arm.
Just started to rain, and I guess it got slick, and we stepped back to do something, and then I reached to catch myself when I fell, and I stuck my hand to catch myself, and the auger on the post hole digger grabbed a hold of my glove and cut right here, all this, took my eyelid, and they had to replace that, and then got my arm.
The car eventually went airborne and smashed into some trees, and coming down, and it landed on the back. They tried to save my arm, my hand. Eventually they had to amputate it.
When you talk to amputees, you realize that the way people lose their arms are in accidents that could happen to any one of us. Each person then has to make an adjustment from one day being an able-bodied person to the next day being an amputee and learning to live without an arm, going back to the same kinds of activities that they did before. That's their goal. When we developed the Utah arm at the University of Utah, the concept was to produce an arm that was more natural to operate and thus more comfortable, looked more like a real arm, but still provided the function that a person needs in an artificial arm.
A lot of the time in the hospital, you have time to think of an awful lot of things. I've lived singly for quite a few years now, and I enjoy that. I didn't want to think that, geez, my brother, my sister, or my folks needed to come to the farm, or I might need to move where they live. I really have enjoyed the idea of being independent, single, and being able to run a household, a ranch. I didn't know if I'd be able to do that anymore without my right arm. While I was in the hospital, I just happened to be looking through a Discovery magazine, and it had an article on prosthetic arms and legs, and they've talked in there about the myoelectric arm. It was nicknamed a bionic arm, and I thought, geez, this is probably a little too good to be true, to have an arm that is going to perform like a real arm. So I kept myself from expecting too much of it. From the degree of surgery on my arm, there was some complications of getting a muscle movement in the bicep area that was needed to run a certain function in the arm. I had complete control of the tricep, the back of the arm, but no bicep. As the weeks went on, I was able to start getting some muscle flex in the bicep area. When I first started wearing this myoelectric arm, I only wore it for an hour or two a day. A little bit of my stump getting used to the socket, but most was the harness going under the armpit of my left arm here. It took a while to get used to that, so a couple hours a day, and geez, within a week's time I was wearing it 8 hours. I'm really happy with the way the hand follows the pressure that I put on that muscle site, and I can just move it very slow if I want, or I can close it quick. It's real responsive that way. I did find when I first put on the myoelectric arm, the weight difference was quite a little bit versus the cable arm that I'd been wearing, and I kind of wondered about that. I could feel my body kind of lean to one way a little bit, but it just in a matter of a week or so that that weight was not uncomfortable at all. It almost seemed to be a balancing effect. The loss of my arm I understood was about the same weight as the myoelectric arm, and probably just knowing that, I felt more balanced with that weight. As I got more proficient at working the arm, I was amazed at how the cosmetic glove, the way the hand opens and all, became so much like a normal hand. I would be in groups of people and no one would notice at all that I was wearing an artificial arm. I guess it does matter to me a bit on my physical appearance. I didn't think it would, but it sure enough is. I have a manual wrist here. I don't have a wrist rotator. And I find it very quick to pick position of hand, whatever I'm picking up, or whatever I need to grab a pencil to mark a board or something. When I'm working on my ranch, this horse ranch I maintain, and I use an awful lot of round-handled tools, shovels, pitchforks, rakes. The hand is just wonderful for that. The carpentry has just been real rewarding to me. That's something I've done for, almost 20 years now, and it was a occupation I really didn't want to give up. I sure enough don't hammer right-handed anymore, but I can sure hold nails and pencils, marking, holding boards so they don't fall too quickly. It's real rewarding to have a hand operating in such a tool-like fashion that I can easily get the things done that I need to do.
Now, if the patient has good control of their remnant muscles, then we install electrodes over the muscles, like these in this demonstration socket. So, just by contracting their muscle, they can smoothly control the elbow, the hand, and the wrist. For a patient that doesn't have good muscle control, then sometimes we need to install a sensor in the harness. This is the ServoPro controller. A patient like Val with a very short remnant limb, we will install the force sensor in her harness, and merely by pulling on it gently, she can control the elbow and then the hand.
I've been married for 12 years. In September, I have 2 kids, which are 11 and 8, and they're taking this all pretty well. I was in Salt Lake for right at a month in the hospital with, I think I was on 6th floor for 2 weeks and then went to rehab for 2 weeks, and then they did another post-surgery, or another little surgery on my eye, and they fitted me for a cable, and I guess didn't like anything of it. Actually, the fit wasn't all that great, and then the harness itself was hard to get into. There was, like this in here, you got buckles that you don't have to be a contortionist to get in it. With the stump part itself being so short and stuff, he said that I'd probably have better luck with myoelectric or ServoPro like I got than the cable, because it'd give me more movement. When you first start to use it, it's a little frustrating because it's all the stuff to remember. How to lock it, how to unlock it, how to, more like relaxing. I can wear it all day, like going to town, and I'm not using it as much, not much stress on it or whatever. We can wear it probably 6 hours. But like if I went out and did some stuff, it's pretty hard duty stuff, I like to wear it a couple hours, take it off, let it dry out, and then go back and put it back on. I think the hand, yeah, it grips better than the hook, because you can reach around things like this more or less than when the hook, you have to have it at a certain angle or whatever to pick things up. But I like the way that the hand and the Greifer hook will pick things up. It's not hard at all to change back and forth. You just take and rotate your wrist and pop it off and slide it off, and then you take the Greifer and just snap it on too, and it's ready to go. I like using the greifer more or less outside, so you don't tear the hand up itself, and it's more sturdy, I guess. I like to use the hand, I guess, in the house. I've been working around here, mainly wash dishes, take like laundry baskets downstairs. I use the wrist rotator more or less to, like after you position on a handle, like for the broom or rake. Washing dishes, like getting a hold of a pan. I can curl it and blow dry it, pretty much hold it with the blow dryer and then style their hair. When we was bottle feeding lambs and stuff, you can usually hold one in this hand and then put a bottle between your legs, and you can feed 3 or 4 lambs at a time.
I guess the biggest shock is just seeing her without her arm. It's hard to get used to. It's hard to explain. I don't think I could do it, what she has done. It's pretty amazing.
The ServoPro controller is one way in which miniature electronics can add improvements into the Utah arm. It transforms a myoelectric Utah arm into a harness-controlled Utah arm, again, by simply pulling on the force sensor. Prosthetists are trained on an intensive training course offered by Motion Control that covers the technical aspects of the arm, fitting procedures, as well as fitting a patient in the course so that when they return, they can fit their own patients. It became apparent right after we started making the Utah arm that we needed a simpler version to control a hand alone for the below elbow amputee. That's the Pro Control, which Tony wears. The Pro Control supplies smooth and proportional myoelectric control of the important function of grasp for a below elbow amputee.
I first heard about the arm when I was in the hospital. Julie, who was my therapist, told me about the arm and what it would take to operate the arm. The muscle flexations, which I had very little muscle movement, but I worked at it, and I kind of got pumped up. I kind of worked out with my phantom feeling, and just worked hard to get my muscle ready. In my mind, I pretend that I'm opening my hand, and that outside muscle flexes, and it actually rotates the wrist or supinate. And if I flex like I'm closing my hand, then muscle B pronates the wrist. Now, to change from the wrist mode to the hand mode, I co-contract. I flex them both at the same time. On a typical day, I would normally do a little cleaning. I go into the kitchen and check to make sure the dishes are washed, and I wash my dishes, trying not to get my hand in the water because I can't get the components wet, because I might short out or something. I sweep the floor, just make sure the floor is pretty clean, Not real thorough, but I do a good job at it. If it's a nice sunny day, I would go to the beach with my girlfriend, B. She likes that. She likes me to put in some quality time. Go walking in the beach, picking up seashells, getting your feet wet. I've been working full-time since college, so I would say about 10 years. I'm now a manager / owner, so to speak. I can fall in either category. But I wait tables still, I cook, I bartend, I cashier, I host, I do maintenance work, whatever it takes, I do it. I tend to like bartending a whole lot because I'm in the bar, with the people, and I can kind of be working and socializing at the same time. And with my mild electric hand, it really makes it easier now to bartend because I can actually grab a hold of a mini bottle and twist the cap off. Not too many people have 3 hands to fool around with, but I have 3. 1 natural and 2 prosthetic. I wear my passive hand when I'm out socializing. I wear my electric hand normally when I go to work. And I love to talk about it. Not talking about it is probably the worst thing.
One of the nice things about the Pro Control is that you have a choice of several different battery options. This is a 9-volt battery pack, which is easily installed through this little adapter. It snaps right into the forearm like that. The 9-volt battery operates the hand faster than any other available today. It is possible to use a rechargeable battery pack like the 6-volt battery pack, which snaps exactly into the same place, so that in fact the 9-volt and the 6-volt become interchangeable. In the Utah Artificial Arm, we use a 12-volt battery pack. I'll pull it out of the charger like this. It's made into a custom molded case. It snaps right into the elbow neatly like this. The sophisticated electronics in the Utah Arm are probably the biggest difference between what's been available in the past and the Utah Arm. But the electronics are there to provide an arm that can be operated with less effort, more precision, and will respond quicker for the amputee. But the Utah Arm by itself is not sufficient. We have to have the motivation of patients like Bob, Val, and Tony to really realize the final design potential of the Utah Arm.
Do look back and think about the accident and what happened, and wonder why it happened, and kind of wish that it didn't happen. If I could turn back the hands of time, it would make me feel a lot better. Other than that, I'm fine with everybody. Whether they know or don't know, if they want to know, fine. If they don't want to know, fine. If they can handle it, fine. If they can't handle it, fine. But it's just me. I know that I'm me, and I have to keep going on, and I will.
I just really realized that this is becoming very second nature to me to operate this arm.
I like it. I like my arm.